multitude of sins department, bit of DIY. This is the tiny space above the door, which you see behind me in some of the videos. There you go, there's the poster on the back. And here, there's a little bit of repainting and things that needs to be done here. But I've got two tiny little shelves, which are just right for A4 so I've just popped them up. I didn't want to do a video where I film myself doing it because, you know, you don't really want to see that. If you want to see that, John's done one recently at Sci-Fi Scavenger, and he put up a whole load of shelves. Now, I can only put up a couple, and in a moment, I'm going to fill them with A's. Right, well, I've managed to get two 9-litre really useful boxes from under the bed, divested them of the crime and horror therein, and got this nice little shelf up here. Now, these will have to all be bagged, just in case the acid leaches out of the paper and into the wallpaper. It all needs painting anyway, but, you know, they look nicer as well bagged, and you'll see these behind me. The only thing I couldn't fit in was this Lovecraft anthology, but it is what it is, you know, it's all good. So I'm very pleased with that. We'll have another look once I've done the bagging. And after my exertions, I'm afraid I need a cola. And as I say, I freed up two of these 9-litre really useful boxes, which are really handy. I know you can't see this properly, but as I keep saying, everything in this house is small, so you're just going to have to deal with them, I'm afraid. Let me just take a sip of this. So we've got the Scotch tape, and we've got the bags. I think you can get these from Bob now, actually, Dorset Bob. So a lot of bookmarks in the way. And interestingly, Nicholas Royal, I'm very keen on, doesn't like bookmarks, but there's some cracking ones. Look at that little dog, isn't that brilliant? Tiger Who Came to Tea, fantastic. So we just get those out of the way. And oh, while we're here, I got this lovely postcard, which is from the Penguin Science Fiction box set of postcards, which has been around for years now. This is from Bruce in Toronto in Canada, who sent this to me to thank me for the channel. Very, very kind of him, really nice guy. And he says he's enjoyed it all. Great service to the bibliophile community. Hope you consider Patreon or the equivalent in addition to super thanks. Hope you have a chance to travel to Capri and elsewhere this summer. Well, thanks a lot for that, Bruce. I would love to get back over to Italy because I think the weather's better this year, but it's not going to happen, sadly. I am going to be off to Amsterdam later in the year, but I'm trying to catch up financially and get over my health problems. I am getting better, which is good. But anyway, enough of this stuff. Bookmarks, look at that one. Now, this is interesting. This is for the Flamingo 1960s series, and I think these must have come out about 25 years ago. And they did one for each year of the 60s, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69. They had 9 of them, and they've got things like William Burroughs, Jack Kerouac, Len Dayton, J.G. Ballard's The Drought, Flann O'Brien. Can't recognise the others, they're too small to read. And I've still got it. It does give a list on the back, actually. Sort of thing that Jules collects. Sort of thing I've thrown away enormously. Tropic of Cancer, Henry Miller is one of the other ones. And there's Joan Didion, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. Really great essayist, Joan Didion. And Papillon by Henri Charrière. So that has been used by me for decades. And there's a 100 must-read science fiction novels bookmark. Good grief. So anyway, it's all about the bagging now. So let's get on with it. And behind the camera, sorry, in front of the camera, you can see I've got these little shelves. And there's some Eastern Press SF there, and some Barnes & Noble SF. There's a couple of Oxford cloth-bound classics of Henry James's collected ghost stories and Arthur Machen's Great God Pan in a suitably decadent yellow. And a load of Nicholas Royal edited anthologies and stuff like that. And I got those because this is the little table that I shoot on a lot. And it's always stuff piled on top there. And I thought, well, I may as well make it neat and tidy. So I thought I'll get these little shelves. They're like 15 quid a pop or thereabouts on Amazon. Easy to put together. You know, they're not really sturdy, but they at least keep things tidy while I'm prepping to shoot them. Because often what you'll see behind me is stuff that I'm about to shoot or planning to shoot over the next week or month or whatever. So it gets a bit messy. So, you know, it is one of those things. So I'm doing my Tucker Coes now. Tucker Coe, one of the pseudonyms of Donald E. Westlake, also known as Richard Stark, Edwin West. What else? Kurt Clark. He wrote science fiction as Kurt Clark. And I've completely messed up the tape on that one. This is not product placement for Scotch, by the way. I always use magic tape. There we go. Right, and Raymond Chandler will be next. You can only put really slim A formats into these, so bigger novels and contemporary novels, you're a bit stuck really. I've got a couple of things here which are quite thick, and they may have to go into some digest bags, which I bought a while ago, just to see what they were like and whether they would fit B format paperbacks. They don't, of course. They fit digest, sort of digest magazines, so that's about perfect. So there you go, Raymond Chandler. Very well, my lovely. Had that for many, many years. The next one's not going to work because that's too big a book. That's The Adventures of Solar Ponds by August Derleth. Solar Ponds, sums like Sherlock Holmes. It's also not going to happen with Edward Bunker's Little Boy Blue. That's too thick. It might happen though with The Animal Factory. Let's have a little look. So I may as well stand one of these up so you can have a look at it while I'm burbling on. Yeah, Edward Bunker, really, really great crime writer. He wrote his first novel, No Beast So Fierce, which I have in a lovely B format, from Vintage USA. He wrote that in prison, and it was made into a film called Straight Time with Dustin Hoffman, which is really good, and you can now get it in the UK on Blu-ray, which is amazing. And for years I had an American DVD of it, but I came across a Blu-ray. I think I showed it on the channel actually, when I did a walk around Bath a little while back, and yeah, I was just astonished to see it. It's not going to happen with that one either, so we need to think again on that. As I say, I'm only really bagging these because they're going up high into a corner, and you know, they look nice as well. I am into bagging, as you will have found, so it's become very much a thing. You know, the books don't stay in them forever, you know, it's just to protect them when they can go into better bookcases. When it's an actual bookcase, you don't need to bag, of course, but what I would say is that bagging is quite handy for protecting the dust jackets. Almost Blue, Carlo Lucarelli, which is a crime novel. Carlo Lucarelli's Italian, obviously. This is the first of 2 books in the sequence, and it looks like a Miles Davis album cover, doesn't it? And basically he does a true crime program in Italy. He's done some screenwriting for Dario Argento. He wrote a trilogy which is published by Europa in trade paperbacks, and I've read them. I can't think for the life of me what they're called, but they follow a cop through regime change. His first novel is before the war, the second novel is during the war, and the third one is after, when it comes out of fascism, and they're quite good actually. That's my favourite book by him. It's really good actually. The sequel, which is called, let's see, what's the sequel called? It's called Day by Day, is not so good, and there is a film version which is really disappointing because, of course, the thing is, Italy has lots of really beautiful people, so it should be easy to cast really good looking people in it, and it's got a female cop who is helped by a blind guy to solve a serial killer case, and that sounds very like an early Argento, and the book is good, but you know, the film isn't. So there's my late 80s copy of Get Carter in A format, one of the most structurally perfect books you will ever read. And what I've also got here are the 2 sequels. This is Jack Carter's Law. Well, I say sequels, they're actually prequels really, because of what happens at the end of Get Carter. When Get Carter was first published, of course, it was called, let me see, it was called Jack's Return Home, and it's a very scarce book in the first edition. And there we go, that's Jack Carter's Law. These got reissued a while ago for the first time since the end of the 80s, early 90s. They were out of print for like forever, and it's really nice to see them back. And they are good actually. This was the 3rd one, Jack Carter and the Mafia Pigeon. This is the weakest of the 3. It's got a Costa del Sol thing going on in it, and it's good, you know, it's absolutely fine. And really, Lewis was the master of Brit Grit, you know, he was the man, but it's not as strong as the first 2, and the first one is an absolute masterclass in motivation, plot, character. Absolutely brilliant. If I was teaching creative writing, I would teach Get Carter. There you go, look at that. Not that I'm teaching creative writing, because I hardly do any myself, that's the trouble. Something I bought to go on the end of those shelves are these sort of bookends from Amazon. There's all sorts of different ones out there. These ones are quite largish ones, and they're very handy if you've got shelves that ends. Now, of course, when you see a decorative bookend, which is like shaped like an elephant or something, a flying saucer, I always laugh because it just goes to show those are people who don't have enough books, which is really quite sad. But these are nice and practical and simple, so I got those to facilitate that process. We're going to do Charles Willeford's The Woman Chaser, which is a Gollancz paperback from the late 80s. I think it was originally published in the 60s. And Charles Willeford is probably my favourite crime writer in terms of prose style. And he's in that sort of Elmore Leonard mode, but he's actually much, much better. This has also been published as The Director, and it is set in the film industry. I haven't read it for ages and ages, and Willeford, absolutely brilliant. I do love him. I haven't read anything for years, so I must go back to him. But his oeuvre is quite small, and I've read pretty much everything. This is a Willeford that you see fairly often, and it ends up sometimes in science fiction bibliographies. I think there's 1 or 2 SF stories, and there may be 1. And this is The Machine in Ward 11. This is a console paperback, 2 and 6, it's 1960s. And it does come up, but I can't remember a lot about it. It's short stories, and it's a very, very long time since I've read it. So I need to go back to that at some point. And of course, the thing is, you know, I'm getting older. I'm 61 this week. And am I going to have time to reread all these books? I did have this plan that when I retire, I was going to stop buying books and read what I've got and reread a lot of my old favourites. But at the moment, I'm finding very much that I want to read new stuff, and that there is Donald D. Westlake's The Dame, one of the Grofield novels, which he wrote under the name Richard Stark. There is a Richard Stark video at the beginning of the channel in the very early days, and I'll do something about him at some point because he's one of my favourite crime writers. Him and Willeford are my guys. They're both gone now, sadly. It's a great shame. But there will be something special coming up about Donald E. Westlake, aka Richard Stark, aka Tucker Coe, aka Kurt Clark, aka Edwin West, and several other pseudonyms as well, probably. Something coming up on the channel. There's another one, The Damsel. And I got these from, let me say, I got these from Murder One in Charing Cross Road back in the 90s, which Maxim Jakubowski ran. And downstairs in the basement, it was crime on the ground floor. Down in the basement was SF, and it was called New Worlds downstairs. And it had a lot of Andy Richardson Cold Tonnages stock there as well. So those were great days going up to London. And I remember going in and asking for Maxim and getting him to sign stuff for me. What a great guy he is. And, you know, now I've had the real joy of being between the same covers as him, you know, in Deep Ends, the Ballardian anthology. So there we go. And I do need to get back to writing short pieces because I'm being asked to do so. But while I'm running the channel, I just don't have any time. So it's really, really hard, you know, when you've got open invitations to write stuff. But a combination of running the channel, going to work, and ill health has prevented me from getting into 2 anthologies in the last few months. So I've really got to get that together, really, because the clock is ticking and one is not getting any younger. Yeah, this is very like a Jules Burt thing, isn't it? You're not actually seeing me doing the bagging because there isn't sufficient space for me to do it. And I don't think I've got the right mount on my camera, really, for this sort of thing. Jules always has it really well, but he's got his studio. If you've never watched the video when he builds his studio, you should. It's great fun. There we go. So more crime bagged up ready. Lovely. This is something I acquired this morning when I nipped into town to do some errands, and this was £2.50. This is the Penguin Book of English Short Stories, edited by Christopher Dolly, and as you can see, it's rather nice. It's A format, and it has a little bit of a ding there, but apart from that, it's very, very nice. It looks unread, and I bought this because it's got some great stuff in it, and it's got a story I really like, which is, you know, a seminal sort of folk horror story, really. I'll just show you now. Let's just have a look. It's got The Withered Arm by Thomas Hardy. Also Charles Dickens, The Signalman, 2 great ghost stories. Conrad Kipling, Wells, Morm, Joyce, Woolf, Lawrence, Catherine Mansfield, Joyce Carey, Aldous Huxley, V.S. Pritchard, all sort of classic stuff. And there is a second volume there, so I may go back tomorrow and get it. Evelyn Moore, Graham Greene, Angus Wilson. Yes, I was really pleased with that. I mean, I am obviously getting into collecting A formats which are in good nick, because, you know, I always had A formats. I always loved them, and I got rid of so many, and I wish I'd kept some. And I am in a short story mode these days, I must say. Something I also picked up is this Penguin Book of American Short Stories, edited by James Cochran. Again, A format, and absolutely stunning. Look at that. No spine lean, no ripple, pretty much unread. And this great stuff in here goes from Washington Irving at the beginning, Poe, Melville, Twain, James, Bierce, Willa Cather, Jack London, Sherwood Anderson. Nobody talks about Sherwood Anderson anymore. Ring Lardner, Fitzgerald, Faulkner, Hemingway, Bernard Malamud, Capote, Updike, and that's really great. I mean, a lot of these mostly are people I've read, but you know, I do like a good anthology, and I am thinking of getting a more recent Penguin American short story anthology, which is a large format trade paperback and is more sort of up to date. But yeah, really beautiful. I think you'd agree. £2.50 again. Finally, I acquired this Paul Auster in the Country of Last Things, one of his early novels, his first science fiction novel. I've tried to read it twice. I've never got on with it. I got rid of it a long time ago. This is in A format, late 80s, early 90s. That's unusual. Why is it in A format? Because his work was in B format even then. It's because this is an export edition. This would have been done for the Irish market, and for when you go to the airport on the other side of the customs, there's a little bookstore. So there we go. And of course, he died very recently, and I couldn't leave this there. There is a ripple on the spine, but it is in pretty good nick. I love this livery. I am going to try and read it again and do a proper review of it for you. But I always fall at the hurdle with this one so far, and I've read all the early work and I just didn't get on with this. But I'm going to hope that third time lucky, with the knowledge he's no longer with us, I do feel the need to give it another crack, so we'll see. On with the bagging. Dennis Etchison, Red Dreams, a Berkeley edition, and this one is signed by the great man. Look at that. And the UK one had a variation on this artwork. It just had artwork of this hand with a mouth in it, and I used to have that, and this is pretty creepy stuff. And I would like the hardcover first, the UK one. The American one's got a doll jacket. The UK one is like this, but it tends to fetch around 40 quid, so it's a hard one to find and hard to find in good nick, so we shall see. Basil Copper, I got this from Bob. I got a couple of Basil Coppers from Bob, actually. I've read short stories by Copper, but I've never read novels, and these look very sort of mythos, you know. But you know, great name, Basil Copper. I'm trying to think what the stories I've read by him. I'm sure I've read some really good ones, but I can't recall. They go Great White Space, rather nice. Okay, what's next? Colin Wilson, The Schoolgirl Murder Case, one of two books about Inspector Saltfleet, little police procedurals with the usual Wilson philosophy thrown in there, bit of the new existentialism. And I've got the other one in hardcover. In a minute I'll actually show it to you, you know, you actually get to see it. So there we go. That's great, isn't it? And I have read these twice. It's a long time ago. I can't remember much about them, but again, a full reread of the Wilsonian corpus, in terms of the fiction at least, will happen, because the thing with Wilson is I used to have loads and loads of non-fiction, and I got rid of most of it, and I regret doing that because some of it is worth a bomb now, quite honestly. But he had a huge impact on me in the early 90s when I started reading him. And you know, it's one of those things. He did riff on the same things and sometimes made leaps of assumption, but he had a lot of really great ideas as well. You know, I really like his fiction personally. So now here's an iconic title, if ever there was one. A lot of us from the 70s will remember this. The Rats by James Herbert. Now this is an 80s reprint, and I got this quite recently. I haven't read it for a million years. It's one of those sort of passed around the schoolyard books when I was a kid, and I recently watched the video that Jules did with Justin Marriott, the paperback fanatic editor and publisher, and he had a first printing which was a different jacket to that, so it's quite interesting. And have they toned it down? I'm not sure about that, because the little rat was like raising his hand. Maybe they thought he looked like a Nazi salute or something, because you know, Nazi chic was quite a thing in the 70s. You know, David Bowie doing the old wave at Victoria Station and all that, which got misinterpreted, and you know, things like Salon Kitty and Cabaret being popular, you know. So there we go, got that. What else have we got? We've got some Robert Falcon now, aka Robert Holdstock, the Night Hunter series, and these are really hard to come by now, and amongst his many pseudonymous works, and it's very hard to get them in the same livery. I mean, some of them were done in hardcover, omnibuses, singletons, all over the place, and I have read them all, but I need to complete the set really, because I don't have them, haven't had them for years and years and years. I picked these up probably a year or two ago, and that's the fifth one and the first one, And as I say, I've got at least one in hardcover, and I think it's an omnibus. So it's just a total mess, the bibliography, but they take me back to the 80s, good days. Occult thrillers with folk horror overtones, preceding his cracking Mythos wood. Look at that. That looks like a swine thing as well, doesn't it? Now, a massively underrated writer you never hear anything about is K.W. Jeter, and this is The Nightman, which I haven't read actually. That's fairly recent acquisition. And Jeter, of course, wrote science fiction. He's still alive. He's still writing now. He's done a load of thrillers, which I think have only been published as ebooks, you know, but he made a fair amount of money through doing sort of Blade Runner sequels and Star Trek books and stuff and that. It's a shame really that, you know, his own work, as opposed to the franchise stuff, hasn't been as well appreciated. And there is a video on the channel about his novel Dr. Adder, which was written in 1972. Nobody would publish it until 1984. Philip K. Dick tried to get people to publish it and nobody would, and it was years and years and years ahead of its time, very Burroughsian. And I once wrote a piece for a book-selling catalogue in which I described Dr. Adder as outstandingly weird. And as a result, that outstandingly weird book sold and sold and sold from that catalogue. This is Mantis, as you can see. Look at that. It's got an embossed praying mantis on the cover. You can't go wrong, really. Now, this one won't go in one of these small bags, but I'll show you anyway. Dark Seeker, I've read this twice. The thing about Jeter is he's really abrasive and pitiless. His depiction of horror in sort of urban settings, it's just like having your skin rubbed off with sandpaper. He's got absolutely no mercy. It's riveting stuff. His SF's great, but his horror is just out of this world. It really is quite something. Right, that's a really rare John Shirley there. That's his first novel, Dracula in Love, and it was a paperback original, and as you see, that one's pretty much mint, and I have read it. It's great fun. I do like John's stuff. Heck of a great guy. Never met him. We have had a number of contacts online. He once sent me a copy of one of his books after what did I do? I included him or a piece of his work in a literary diary I edited a long time ago. Great guy. And there we go. And this is The Colour Out of Time by Michael Shea, which is a Mythos novel. And there's a Door edition of this, I think, and this is a Grafton one. This is really good as well. It's very sharp, and there is a video about Michael Shea on the channel, which I recorded ages ago. It's had quite a lot of views, actually, and he's dead, sadly. Never appreciated enough in his lifetime. Brilliant horror and fantasy writer. Absolutely marvellous. Great stuff. I do wish I had my original still, which is a nicer cover, a UK cover, which I think is a Jim Burns. Something I haven't been able to bag up is this wonderful vegetarian horror novel by Ian Watson, Meat, which, as you can see, has no punches being pulled. This is great stuff. It's pretty queasy. There was never a hardcover of this. Watson did 2 of these horror novels for Headline. Headline were like they consider themselves to be like an upmarket version of Star W.H. Allen in the 80s. They were a brand new publisher in the mid 80s. And this is great, actually. The other one was called The Power. It was done in hardcover as well, but it was basically the A format paperback bound up in boards. It was the same text block, different SBN, of course. And was it somebody also did that as well with Dan Simmons, Song of Carly, and I don't think that was Headline, though maybe it is. I've got it under the bed again somewhere again, but if you ever see Meat, pick it up. It's a cracker. Okay, all bagged and beautiful. Saves me some space. And you might be thinking, well, that's not really a lot of A format horror and crime, but it isn't, because, you know, the fact is that I buy books to read. I'm not a sort of person who buys books just for the covers and things. There are some exceptions to the SF. With other things, it is stuff that I read or I've read. Like I've read all these crime novels apart from the Solar Ponds one. And there's a couple of horror things here I haven't read. But, you know, I don't keep a lot of horror and crime after I've read them. You know, I tend to let them go. But these are some of my favourites, I guess. So I'm very pleased with that. Something else I've done today is Frame and Hang, this magnificent limited edition print, which Paul bought me. Thanks very much, Paul. It's really kind of you, because this is the cover, of course, of the Pan Lozenge edition, the first paperback edition of Christopher Priest's A Dream of Wessex, which was the first Priest I bought, so it means a lot to me, and it's my favourite SF cover of all time. So I'm really, really pleased with that. And I've got to do some cleaning up around then. I need to repaint in here basically as well. But that's really good. So between that and my little bit of shelving up the top there, I'm very pleased. I'm absolutely crap at DIY, I have to be honest. But it's really nice to do these little jobs. This isn't a permanent frame or a permanent hanging. It's just one I had around. So I thought I may as well get that up there because I didn't like it sitting around the tube and I just wanted Paul to be able to see it. And thanks again, Paul. You're very, very kind. And thanks to everybody who's ever bought me anything. Super thanks. It really is quite moving. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing out. Bye for now.